Pleasure to make the cross-examine if you wish.
I do in fact, Your Honor. Thank you, sir. Ms. Oliveira, my name is Tom Clegg. I am a lawyer here in Decatur, and I have a few questions for you, okay? If you can speak up into the microphone so we can all hear you, okay? What day of the week was it always happen?
It must have been either towards the end of the week, Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. Is it fair to say, based on your answer, you do not have a specific recollection of what day of the week it was?
I don't recall the specific day now, but I know it was towards the end of the week.
And you just used the phraseology, must have been towards the end of the week. Why did you say must have been towards the end of the week?
We didn't provide DJ service in the beginning of the week, like a Monday or Tuesday or a Wednesday. It must have been a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Now, do you recall what these individuals consumed while they were at the restaurant?
No, sir.
They came to the bar, is that correct?
They did.
Okay. Now, on the receipt which has been admitted into evidence, it says table and then says dinner couple.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did they have dinner?
No.
Did they sit at a table?
No, they did not.
So, and the bill was for $20.35 worth of merchandise, correct?
Correct.
You have absolutely no recollection whether they ate anything or not, correct?
Sir, at the time that they came in, dinner was not available and we did not serve dinner at that time. And the tables are not available on the dance floor.
So if I'm understanding correctly, they came into the bar or the establishment late enough in the evening where they couldn't get dinner, right?
Correct.
And they came into the establishment late enough where they could not get a table, correct?
The tables were pushed out of the way so that the bar lounge was a dance environment in the evening.
And was that done to accommodate the crowd that you expected on the dance floor?
That's correct.
So this would have been an evening where you were anticipating a crowd to show up and be on the dance floor, right? In light of the fact that dinner was not available, why is it described on the ticket as a dinner couple?
That was just the generic coding of the computer. I don't know their setup or who set up the computer, but that's just the way it's indicated.
Did you make that entry yourself that they were a dinner couple?
No, sir? No, I did not.
You have any idea how that entry got onto that particular ticket that they were in fact a dinner couple?
I believe all receipts stated dinner couples as a generic table. It's not indicated table number or a bar. That wasn't the method that they used. It's just generic receipt input.
Is it your understanding that pretty much everyone who comes in, if they don't come by themselves, is a dinner couple?
No, sir.
For purposes of your coding system?
I don't know how management chose to describe dinner couple or singles,
Okay.
but that was just what the receipt states. I had no entry in that.
Is it fair to say that you would have been the only person who would have made any sort of computer entry in regards to this particular couple?
That evening, yes.
No one else in the bar was fulfilling the function that particular evening, correct? And even though the tables had been cleared out to allow people to dance, virtually no one else was in the bar at all, correct? You have, of course, no recollection of what day of the week it was when these folks walked into the bar, right?
Okay.
What was the actual day? And don't look at the receipt that they came in.
I don't know, sometime in October.
I'm sorry?
Sometime in October, towards the end of the month.
Okay, so it was in October, right?
So,
And you guys at the bar were planning a big Halloween blowout, right?
yes,
And that was something you conveyed to the male who you recalled, correct?
yes, he asked what events were going to take place and how often we were opened, and I provided him the information as to the Halloween party.
Okay, so the male, this is the male you're having this conversation with, right?
Yes.
He is interested in knowing the schedule of the bar in the near future, right?
Yes, because he's mentioning to her that we should return.
I'm sorry, speak up.
The three of us were in conversation at the bar when the male is approaching me and asking me what's the next event. He's also directing the question not just at myself, but at the defendant.
Based on that question, did you get the impression that this couple was from the Greenville area?
No.
You did tell them about the Halloween event, right?
I did.
Was it going to be a costume party?
It was.
Did either of the individuals, the male or the female, indicate that they might come back and check out the costume party?
The male said that we should return, were his comments to her.
We should return.
Yes,
And again, this would have been in Greenville, South Carolina,
that is correct.
correct? Now, you said there was virtually nobody else in the bar that particular evening, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there were other people working there, I guess, right?
Myself and the video.
There is no security?
No, sir.
Was there a surveillance system inside the restaurant?
There might have been, I'm not sure if it was working.
You don't know one way or the other, correct?
I was not responsible for surveillance in the restaurant.
Okay. Let me make sure I understand correctly. You believe that there was a system in place.
There was.
Let me finish the question. But you are not sure whether it was actually functioning on that evening. Is that correct?
There was a monitor in the room for the employees that you can see the activity in the front of the restaurant. I'm not sure if it was recording that evening. I don't know how management or the owners of the restaurant had it set up.
Okay. When did you actually leave this particular restaurant?
I'm sorry?
When did you stop working at this restaurant?
I returned to Miami in the end of October, beginning of November.
Of 2010?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us the precise date that you moved back to Miami?
November 1st.
November what? 1st. So you were not around at that location for an extended period of time after this particular incident, correct? How many days was it between this particular incident where you made these observations and when you moved back to Miami?
10 days.
10 days? It's interesting, ma'am. You just said you didn't know the specific date when they came in, but now you're saying it was 10 days.
According to the receipt, sir, it was the 21st indicated on the receipt, and I know I was in Miami on November 1st.
Okay. So your testimony is not based on your recollection, but simply
I
looking
do
at this
recall.
ticket. Is that correct, ma'am?
No, I remember when I moved back to Miami, sir.
How long did you work at this bar?
A few months.
Were there nights when it was crowded?
Yes, it was.
Were there nights when people danced?
Yes,
Were there nights when people danced energetically?
yes, sir.
Were there nights when people did salsa dancing?
Yes,
Were there nights when people attempted to twirl each other around?
yes,
This is a fairly common practice at the establishment, correct?
yes, and it had its peak seasons.
Speak into the microphone,
It
ma'am.
had its peak seasons, meaning especially if there was a baseball game down the street, we could expect the restaurant to be crowded because we would have the spill from the stadium over to the restaurant. When it was cold, there wasn't a large crowd. If it was raining, there wasn't a large crowd. So it depended on the evening, and Greenville is funny about crowds. It's not a steady customer base.
Was it cold that evening?
It was cool, I remember that.
Was it raining that evening?
I don't remember that.
Now, do you remember what these individuals were wearing? What sort of garb, what sort of outfit they had on?
I remember that the gentleman was wearing a yellow polo shirt and glasses with khaki pants, and she was wearing a jean jacket and glasses, and her hair was halfway pulled up.
Now, you've looked at the ticket and you see that your recollection of these individuals were apparently in that bar on October 21st. When is the next date, that you tried to recollect what happened on that particular day?
I'm sorry?
Okay. When is it that at some point in the future you sat down and thought, what was going on October 21st of 2010 in that bar?
The date doesn't stick out, sir, but the couple did.
Okay. When is it when you were asked about the couple?
Several months later.
Define several months.
I can't give you a specific month. I know I was phoned asking if I had remembered this particular couple.
Okay. So you were asked at some point in the future, several months after the fact, if you remembered this particular couple.
Yes,
Were you shown a picture of the couple?
yes.
Was that before, were you able to remember this particular couple before you were shown a picture? Or did you remember them prior to being shown a picture?
The first phone call that I had received asked if I was working at Pulse Lounge during this time. I indicated yes. The next phone call was if we can show you a picture, would you be able maybe to describe a customer, or not describe it, excuse me, maybe remember if a particular customer had been in the bar. When I was shown the picture, they stood out immediately.
And you remembered that, did you remember them instantaneously?
Yes, sir.
Would that have been in March of 2011?
Possibly, yes.
Do you remember exchanging a series of emails with a gentleman by the name of David Rosenthal?
Yes.
Do you remember having had an opportunity, did you read what he had to say? And in turn, did you respond to what he had to say?
I know I responded to the email. I don't know what I indicated. I don't remember.
You have an exhibit. Second. Who did you know David Rosenthal to be?
I didn't know who he was. He had,
Well, at some point, did you find out who he worked for?
yes,
And was that for the district attorney's office in DeKalb County?
yes,
And did you communicate back and forth with him over a short period of time?
yes,
Did you at some point tell him that you remembered this couple very well?
yes.
And in your first communication with him, did you say anything at all about their kissing?
I remember indicating that they had kissed when I was on the phone with him.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I had received an email with the pictures. I don't know if I emailed what took place that night. I do remember standing outside of my employer at the time on the phone with Mr. Rosenthal indicating what happened that night and that they had kissed, yes.
So the first time you would have communicated via email with Mr. Rosenthal, you believe that you specifically related to him that they had kissed, right?
I don't remember what I wrote to him.
Let me show you, may I approach you with
You have it.
Let me show you what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 2 and ask you to direct your attention to the bottom of the page. Just read that to yourself now.
Is that you too?
Let me know when you have finished reading that particular email. Okay. Does that refresh your memory as to the email communication that you first had with Mr. Rosenthal describing your recollection of these individuals?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you, in your first email communication to Mr. Rosenthal, ever say anything about the couple having kissed?
Specifically kissing, no, sir.
Okay, so you did not, is that correct?
No. But as I indicated here, he was very touchy and all over her. I mean, that could have been me indicating there he was all over her.
Okay. He was all over her, right?
Yes.
You also communicated to the district attorney's office that she was not as into him as he was into her, correct?
That's correct.
What is it that led you to draw that conclusion?
Their demeanor.
Their demeanor. You mean their demeanor on the dance floor when Mr. James was describing their various moves? Did you look at those moves and say, gosh, she's not into him?
He was very expressive and he was interacting with me. She was not as verbal as he was, but they seemed to be having a good time. There were 3 people in the bar and the DJ was very far off. So they were talking to me throughout
Okay.
their
So your opinion that she was not into him as much as he was into her was based on the conversations you had with him?
no, sir, based on his body language.
Okay. And tell us about her body language that led you to conclude that she was not as into him as he was into her.
In the beginning of the evening, she was upset, and towards the end, she was much more affectionate. She did display affection towards him, not as much as he did, but she did display affection towards him.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand your testimony, first, in the beginning of the evening, she was upset, right? What is it that would cause you to think, wow, she's upset? What behavior did she do, engage in, that led you to
She
draw that
appeared to
conclusion?
be upset and asked where the restroom was, and he indicated that
No, I'm not asking you what he said. I'm asking you what manifestations or what actions
her
did she
facial
take?
expression and his confirmation that apparently something was bothering him.
Her expression. What was her expression?
He was upset,
Tell us what that looks like.
an upset face. I don't know, she was upset.
Mr. James has demonstrated the dance move for us. So what I want you to do right now, for the benefit of these ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is demonstrate that look that led you to conclude that she was upset.
She seemed to throw her things around. She had not an angry face. She wasn't angry. She was just upset about something. She was bothered.
Was she crying?
I don't remember her crying, but I do remember she was upset.
When you say you don't remember her crying, does that mean she was not crying, or she may have been, or may not have been?
Sir, she was wearing glasses, so she was crying or she was teary-eyed. I don't remember. Or I didn't notice that.
Did you notice anything else about her body language that led you to conclude that she was upset?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
She was shaking her hands and kind of put her phone on the bar. Her phone on the bar.
Now, did you overhear any of her actual phone conversation?
No.
Okay. And how long did she shake her hands for?
2 seconds.
How long?
2 seconds.
2 seconds, okay.
2 seconds, the drink is there, and she's like, upset and went for her drink and kind of brushed it off. And
Did she have one drink or two?
I don't remember how many drinks.
And was it an alcoholic drink?
It was an alcoholic drink.
Was it a beer as opposed to a glass of wine as opposed to a mixed drink?
It was probably a mixed drink.
Probably a mixed drink. You are here in a court of law, ma'am. You are testifying under oath, and you use the word probably. Do you know what she had to drink?
Precisely, no, sir.
Do you know that it was a mixed drink?
Yes,
Why did you use the word probably?
because I don't really recall the exact drink she had.
Now you were, despite the fact you're sitting at the bar with these folks, right? You're the one who serves these folks, right? And when they get out on the dance floor, you're watching them like a hawk, right?
They were very entertaining and brilliant.
You don't miss a beat, right?
Not when we're 3 people in a bar, sir.
Okay. But at the same time, you are unaware of what they're drinking and anything else, right?
This was some time ago. I don't really recall the drink. No.
Okay, it was some time ago and I don't really recall. And again, this happened, allegedly, on October 21st, right? You don't have a specific recollection of that date, do you? You don't have a specific recollection of the date that you actually talked to the investigator from the DA's office, right?
No, sir.
When you talked to the investigator from the DA's office, it would have been some time ago, right?
Yes, sir.
And yet you have a very specific recollection as you sit here today on the witness stand and describe the way they danced, right?
Yes, sir.
You have a specific recollection of the sequence of the dances they engaged in, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have a specific recollection of the kind of kisses they exchanged.
Yes, sir.
Did you testify in the trial of Henny Newman?
Yes, I did.
Did you describe the nature of the kisses as pop kisses?
Yes, sir.
What's a pop kiss?
When you press your mouth against someone else.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
When you press your mouth against someone else, there was no tongue involved.
Okay, so it's just a kind of thing?
Not a peck, sir, but more a long press on the lips.
That's a pop kiss.
Where I come from, that is a compliment.
Okay. And that's from Miami, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you described it as a pop kiss. Again, in the initial conversation you had with Mr. Rosenthal over the internet, you described no kiss at all, right?
I'm sorry?
You described no kiss at all in your original communication with Mr. Rosenthal, right?
But in my second communication, I did.
Okay. And that was after he sent you a picture, right?
Yes, sir.
You ever send you a photo lineup?
Don't, no.
You know what a photo lineup
I
is?
do.
Okay, it's a group of pictures. It asks you whether you can recognize anybody, right?
No, sir.
Let me ask you this. How long were these folks in the bar?
About an hour? No, I'm not good.
And that is the only time you ever saw him in your whole life, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you went back to Miami, what were you doing?
I was working in what I normally work in my profession,
Okay. What is that?
human resources.
I'm sorry?
Human resources.
Okay. But at the bar, you would have come into contact with a lot of folks, right?
Yes, sir.
And so the only time you ever saw these people at any point in your life was for 1 hour or thereabouts on October 21st of 2010, right?
Yes, sir.
How long did it take you to make an identification of them?
A few minutes.
A few minutes?
Within a half an hour.
Well, within a half an hour.
I
I'm
was
lost.
working when I received the email.
Okay. Let's make sure we're asking the right question. When you got the pictures, did you recognize them immediately?
I recognized, yes, both of them.
Okay. But again, you were sent 2 pictures of 2 people, right?
2 people.
And in fact, Mr. Rosenthal, when he communicated to you, said he was going to send you pictures of the 2 people.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Taking a look at may I approach you?
Right.
Looking at defense exhibit number 2, when he communicated with you, just read that portion right there.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's not intended or admitted.
Well, I'm assuming, Ms. Cloud, you're saying read it to herself at this time?
I'm going to ask him to read it to herself. That's
I would allow her to do that at
Yes.
this time. Read it to yourself, young lady. And then when you finish reading, look up.
Okay. Does that refresh your memory as to any communication Mr. Rosenthal had with you?
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Rosenthal tell you that attached are the 2 people who walked into your bar on October 21st?
When he followed up with his email.
Okay. Did he tell you the pictures I'm sending you are in fact the 2 people who walked into your bar?
Yes, sir.
He did, right? And that's when you made your quote-unquote identification, correct?
Yes.
Do you know where is it the Hampton Inn is?
In the green room?
Yeah.
No, sir.
And you had no idea how far that would be from the lounge where you work, right?
The hotel in downtown is not far away. The
Okay.
hotel.
A hotel downtown. How far, when you say not far away, what do you mean there?
In driving distance, it was not that far, less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
In walking distance, it was a little bit further.
Did you ever see either one of them get into a car?
No.
You did watch them as they walked out, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall testifying in the previous trial regarding seeing them as they walked out of the establishment?
Yes, sir.
Let me mark this as defendant's exhibit number 3. We'll show it to Mr. James. Again, I'm going to ask for her to refresh your recollection, sir. May I approach?
You may?
All right, Ms. Oliveira, I am going to approach and show you what has been marked as defendant's exhibit number 3 and ask you to direct your attention to the bottom of page 71. Just read that over again to yourself. Okay. Did you testify, does that refresh your memory as to what you testified to in the previous trial about their walking out?
Yes, sir.
Did you testify that you saw them, I guess, let me take a look at it, I forgot. That you saw them, he kissed her on the way out, and that was the last time I saw them. You have testified here today extensively as to seeing them after they left the bar, right?
After they left the bar?
Yes, as they were walking away outside of the physical premises of the building, correct?
Yes, sir. My statement doesn't change that they left embraced.
Okay, so at the time of Mr. Newman's trial, you said he kissed her on the way out, and that's the last I saw him, right?
Yes, and they had their arms around each other.
And now you testify here today that you saw them embrace once they were outside of the bar.
It's same thing.
Yes or no?
But can you please restate your question? I'm not really
I'm
sure.
just asking, did you testify in Mr. Newman's trial that he kissed her on the way out, and that's the last I saw him?
Out of the window is what I testified, or recall testifying to, that I looked out the window.
Okay. So your definition of the term way out is when they're already outside?
On their way out of the door, yes, sir.
Okay. So it's their way out of the door as opposed to their way out of the restaurant, right?
It was right there.
Okay. Anything else in regard to her being upset?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware on November 18th of 2010 that Henny Newman, or that Rusty Sneiderman was killed?
I don't really remember what Mr. Rosenthal had indicated to me.
Okay, I mean, I'm not asking you what Mr. Rosenthal told you.
No, I don't know.
Okay, on the day itself.
On the day itself, no, I don't.
Okay. Were you aware of Henny Newman's arrest on January 4th of 2011?
No, sir.
At the time Mr. Rosenthal communicated to you, were you aware that Henny Newman had been arrested for the murder of Rusty Snyder?
I don't remember that.
So there would have never been an opportunity between, and by the way, what was looking at the email, does that refresh your memory as to the date that you would have had communication with Mr. Rosenthal?
So it's the date here?
Does that refresh, and again, looking at, actually, yeah, you can take a look at both of those pages. Does that refresh your memory as to those dates, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
And what would those dates have been?
Monday?
Hmm?
March 7th?
March 7th, 2011. Over 4 months, 4.5 months after these two folks came into your bar for about an hour and then left, right? Apparently he wasn't much of a dancer, is that correct?
That is correct.
She was dancing and he was doing his darndest, but all he could do was swing them around, right?
Correct.
Okay. But nonetheless, they apparently then got into some sort of more involved dance, is your recollection?
Yes.
Even though he couldn't dance, right?
You tried.
Okay. And again, do you remember, and if you don't, that's fine, whether they were drinking the same sort of drink or not?
I don't.
Okay. And do you remember, again, I think you've answered this, but I apologize, whether one had 2 drinks, one had 1 drink, vice versa? Okay, but they did not appear to be intoxicated at that time, correct? Okay. I don't believe I have any other questions, Ms. Overberg. Thanks very much.
Any redirects?
Yes, sir.
You may.
So is there any reason why you would remember these folks? I mean, is there something different or odd about them?
They were just an odd couple. It's one of those that you see them and you're asking yourself, oh, that's odd, that's strange. There was really,
I mean, what was so odd or strange about these
their
folks?
entire stay at the bar, the entire time that they were there, it was just odd.
When you remember your 16th birthday party?
I do.
Can you tell us about it? Just in brief.
Yeah, I went for some pictures and got picked up in a limo and went out with some friends.
Of all the birthday parties that you've had, do you remember pretty much most of them?
I think I'm going to check the relevance of whether this
I'm going
witness.
somewhere with my next
All
one.
right, I'm going right. I'll give you a little bit of latitude as far as that you're gonna connect this up.
Next question.
All right.
I object to Dr. Brown's role.
Well, I understand, and I'm going to, right now, withhold that ruling. Give some latitude, go ahead.
Do you remember the days of the week that those birthday parties were on?
Yes, sir.
You said that you were talking to the lady, the defendant here, and can you tell us again, what did she tell you about her dancing ability?
He had indicated, the gentleman had indicated that she was a trained dancer.
That she was a trained dancer.
A trained dancer,
And what did she say?
yes,
She said yes.
yes,
She said she was a trained dancer.
yes. She confirmed his statement.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
The
Mr.
train
Clay, any
dancer,
response?
yes, sir. The train dancer stuff, was that in your communications with Mr. Rosenthal?
I believe so.
He was? Take a look and,
I don't know if it was in the email, but I know that I indicated that on the phone.
okay. Did you testify about that when you testified in the trial at Hemi Newman?
I believe so. That's not it.
It's not in the emails with Mr. Rosenthal, is it?
No, sir.
Did you testify about it in the trial of Hemi Newman?
Yes, sir. Ma'am, given the
You
description.
can answer the question yes or no, ma'am, and then explain your answer, but you have to give me an answer, yes or no. Did you testify about it in the trial of Hemi Newman?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, well, here's your testimony. Why don't you find that for us?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I have nothing further.
Need we redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, just one quick question. Were you asked that at the trial of Hemi Newman? So you never said anything differently?
No, I've always said that that was what he indicated. I don't remember if that question was posed, but I do remember Mr. Newman stating that, and the defendant confirming that she was a trained dancer.
Have myself or anybody that worked in my office told you that she was a trained dancer?
Okay.
Is there anything in that email communication that Mr. Clegg was waving around that said she was a trained dancer?
In my emails, no. I know when I spoke with someone from your office, I went into further detail. It was very hard to describe how two people are acting, especially given, their body language. And it was very difficult. So I know I said that Mr. Newman indicated that she was a trained dancer.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions. question is permission to publish a clip.
Oh, yes, yes, you may. Is this one, Mr. James, has been identified in that earlier package?
Yes, it has.
What number? Okay.
The number.
Just for the purpose of
6-1, Your Honor.
6-1.
Yes, sir.
You may.
Did you dance?
I got onto the dance floor myself, as I explained. I've been a trained dancer for some time, going to be able to dance freely as I've release. I'm very much in my own space.
Nothing for you, Your Honor.
Any recross?
Probably not. Hold on a second.
All right, take your time.
Thank you, Judge.
Oh, we're back on the record. Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused, or do you want her to remain on the stand?
Your Honor, no objection for being released.
Any objection?
I have no objection whatsoever, Your Honor.
All right, you can go on down there, lady, free to go. Go back to Miami, have a safe trip. Take care, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the stand at this time intends to play one more clip before calling the next witness. The clip is identified as 2-1.
2-1, you may.
Okay. On July 17th, do you remember the defendant sending you an email concerning Ruby Falls?
I do not have that recollection. I don't. What's Ruby Falls?
Okay. And Judge, may I approach?
You may.
This is stipulation page 4861 and 4862. On hand, you state specific number 9. Can you identify that for me, please?
I'm sorry. Read the whole email. Is that what you meant?
Can you just identify it? Is that your email address, the defendant's email address?
It is my email address, and it is his email address.
Okay. Do you remember? Take a second to look at State's Exhibit 9. Do you remember that?
I don't, but I'm sure that now that I read it,
I mean, that is your email address.
it's my email address.
Okay.
Do you need to look at that document to refresh your recollection? You may.
Follow me on that email. From Hemming Newman in the middle, it says, it's a waterfall in a cave.
Right.
Yes, and wishing you were there.
Yeah.
How did you respond?
He says it's a waterfall in a cave. Yes, wishing we were there, wishing. And then he says what hotel we were in.
Look
There
it
was
up
a-
and see how you respond.
I says ditto. I honestly don't remember the hotel. I will have to check tomorrow. Hilton property. We're talking about a hotel that we were staying in, I guess, for one of the trips.
I understand. He's there with his family at Ruby Falls, wishing you were there, and you responded ditto. Why would you respond ditto?
I don't know if that's the part of the email I was responding to, and I think I can only say that I might have been responding to the fact that he talked about tranquility and a nice place that was peaceful, because he does say that, and I hope for peace in my life, and my life was has been pretty busy when I was working there, so I'm sure that that's what I was thinking when I was responding.
Okay. Judge, I move to admit 9. It's already stipulated too, sir. When you traveled for GE without the defendant, did he ever show up even though he did not have GE business at that location?
Yes. Well, I know now that he didn't have GE business, but that was not my understanding at the time.
Which trip are you talking?
Your Honor, this time the state would call Katie Goff and have her return to the stand, please.
You may. ladies and gentlemen, so we're having some challenges with this humming, we're trying to eliminate that. Although the humming may persist, I just need you to listen as best as you can, and I have been working on it during the lunch break. I will have been working on it tonight, but there's some interference that I just can't control right now. I think it's at a lower level, you may proceed.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you should give to the court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Raise your hand. Ready to see it? And you can spell your name for the record.
It's Kathleen Goff, Aphlin, Gough.
All right, Ms. Goff, you were with us not too long ago, and we discussed emails at that time. I'm going to direct your attention to what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 14. I've already shown this to Mr. Petrie. May I push the
You
list?
may.
State's Exhibit number 14 has already been admitted by stipulation in the large binders and emails that we talked about earlier, containing State's Exhibits 3A and 3B. I'm going to ask you to publish that and read it to the jury.
Okay, this is an email from Andrea Sneiderman to Amy Newman on Saturday, July 17th.
And how does it begin? Who's the first communicator?
The original message is from Hemi Newman to Andrea Sneiderman on Saturday the 17th at approximately 16:43, which 4:43. It says, Ruby Falls, Tennessee, thinking of you.
Remind me, what was the date of that email?
July 17th, 2009.
And it's talking about where in Tennessee?
Ruby Falls.
Ruby Falls. Does Mrs. Sneiderman respond to the defendant's email of Saturday, July 17th?
She does.
And what's the response?
That is beautiful. I've never been. I hope you're having fun. I'm sitting on my dock by myself. 5 minutes of peace. Yay.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15, admitted by stipulation in the binder of emails that we discussed earlier. State's Exhibit number 15. What does that appear to be?
This is a series of emails between
One second. Go ahead, you may proceed. As I said, that humming noise is persisting when I try to turn that amplifier or reset it. It's coming in louder. But we're going to have to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear, I just had witnesses speak up a lot of the possibly can as far as what the rest of you take. I can't control the sound system right now, so but as long as you can hear, that's the best I can do. Go ahead.
The document State's Exhibit number 15 that I just handed you. How many pages does that consist of?
I have 2.5 pages.
2.5 pages. That's State stamp page for the record 6376, 6377, and 6375.
678.
678, thank you. 6376, 6377, and 6378. I'm going to direct your attention, Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to direct your attention, Ms. Goff, to a portion of the email on the second page of the document. And I am referencing, can you tell me what the time stamp and the date are for the email that I just referenced and I just identified for you?
Saturday, July the 17th at 19:29:07, which is U.S. military time.
It is military time. Can you tell me who sent that email?
Henry Newman sent an email to Andrea Sneiderman.
And can you read the content of the email, please?
It's a waterfall in a cave, yes, and wishing you were here, and wishing that I shared that the tranquility with you.
Does it appear to be a typo in the email?
I'm not quite sure what that is. It
All
probably
right.
looks like a typo.
That's how it reads. What's the next line of the email?
What hotel are you in?
And what was the date of that again?
That is Saturday, July 17th.
Saturday, July the 17th. Does Mrs. Snowden respond
She does.
What's defendant Sneiderman's response?
Ditto, I honestly do not remember the hotel. I will have to check tomorrow. A Hilton property, I'm sure.
Ditto, that was the response?
Ditto, period.
Go back to Mr. Newman's previous email. Did he say something like wishing you were here? What was his exact words?
And wishing you were here and wishing I shared. Yeah.
Once the, did Mr. Newman then respond to Mrs. Sneiderman's email?
He did.
And what was that response? Can you read it for us, please?
Is it the Hampton, only Hilton Care facility? I stayed at the Holiday Inn.
Your Honor, this time I'm going to ask the clip identified as 2-2 be played.
You may.
Okay. When did you go to Longmont?
I don't remember the date. In July.
Okay. July of 2010?
Yes.
When you were in Longmont, did the defendant attempt to have flowers and chocolates and a love note waiting for you in Longmont?
I was not aware of that until it came out in the proceedings here so far. I was not aware of that.
And may I approach, Judge?
You may.
This is stipulation page 4875. My hand is Mark States Exhibit number 10. Can you identify this for me, please?
Okay.
What does that say?
He talks about flowers or it talks about chocolates and flowers. But they were supposed to leave in my room. I don't remember receiving this email.
Do you remember your response on the very bottom?
No.
You don't remember responding? So thoughtful and sweet. I knew you might try something like this.
I don't remember responding that, no.
Your Honor, statement was to admit 10 and stipulated 2.
All right, there's the number right there.
Now, on 10, is that your email address?
It's my email
And
address.
is that the defendant's email address?
It is.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. While you were in Longmont, did the defendant send you roses in an email?
I don't know.
You may.
Judge, this is Exhibit 11, and it's S 4867 through 69.
And that's who's stipulated, President?
Yes. Ma'am, this is States 11. Can you identify that for me, please?
Yep.
Is that your email?
It's my email
And is
address.
that the defendant's email?
It is.
And did you not respond saying, those are gorgeous, seriously?
It,
I have an appreciation for perfectly open roses. Not sure what else to say, but thank you. Unbelievably thoughtful of you. Is that your response?
that's, I guess, my response, yeah.
You don't remember receiving that email or sending that email either?
This is now almost 2 years ago, so, but if you have it here, then I suppose that I sent it.
Judge, I move to admit States 11, it's also admitted.
Now, may I touch the witness?
You may.
For reference, the reference of the evidence is state stamp page 6382 is identified as state's exhibit number 16. So I can take a look at state's exhibit number 16 for me, please?
Yes.
State's exhibit number 16 talking about the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman?
Correct.
When we're talking about Hemi, are you talking about Hemi Newman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you read that email for me, please?
The response or the original?
The original.
The original from Mr. Newman.
Yes.
It has a URL at the top of send flowers to com.
What's the URL?
A web address, website.
You click that link, what happens?
It looks to me like it's going to bring up a picture of mixed roses.
Okay.
I tried to get this delivered tonight to your room, but ran into Hilton bureaucracy. How frustrating. Like 20 phone calls. You were really special. Good night. Talk to you tomorrow.
What time is that email sent?
July the 18th at 9:43 p.m.
At 9:43 p.m. Does the defendant respond to Mr. Newman's email sending her a picture of roses?
She does.
When does she respond?
At 12:30 a.m. on Monday the 19th.
And what is her response, as
So-
indicated in State's Exhibit number 16?
So thoughtful and sweet, and you might try something like this. Talk to you tomorrow. I am joining a Mumbai quad opening. Call now. See you later.
Is there any other response or any other email communication on State's Exhibit number 16?
No, there's not.
May I push through?
You may.
I'm showing you what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 17, and for purposes of the record is date stamp page 6381. What is State's Exhibit number 17, Ms. Scott?
It is another email between Sneiderman and Mr. Newman.
And what is the date and time of Mr. Newman's initial email?
Mr. Newman's initial email was 9:49 p.m.
On what date?
on Sunday, July the 18th.
July 18th? And when, if she does the defendant respond to Mr. Newman's email of Sunday, July 18th?
At 12:27 a.m. on July the 19th.
And what is her response?
Those are gorgeous. Seriously, I have appreciation for perfectly open roses. Not sure what else to say, but thank you. Many thoughts, I suppose. Unbelievably thoughtful of you.
Unbelievably thoughtful of you?
Yes.
Mr. Pascal? Now, this continues to be put to
I appreciate you giving that offer. Follow my instructions, okay? I will see.
I will, sir. And did you make a further response to that email?
No,
Ma'am,
I don't know.
you don't remember?
No, I don't remember the email, every email that I wrote.
I'm sorry, I didn't give you that response, ma'am.
I don't remember every email that I've written.
All right.
And may I approach Judge?
You may.
Judge, this is number 12. It's S487.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll show you this next case. It's number 12. Can you identify that for me, please? Is that your email?
Yes,
Is that the defendant's email?
yes,
And you respond again, are you kidding me? Nothing here, of course. And then you respond, or he responds, that the receptionist called him the last great romantic. And how did you respond on that email?
You can read it out loud. Yeah.
at the top.
Yes, ma'am.
He's asking how did you respond, so if you see your response, I'm gonna read it out loud.
But I thought it maybe did not work out. Romantic for sure. Talk to you in a few.
Why would you say to him it was romantic?
I said romantic for sure. Romantic gesture. It was a response to what he was saying. I was responding to what he was saying, I guess.
Why would you respond that it was a romantic gesture to the defendant?
He says the receptionist called me the last great romantic.
But he just sent you an email roses.
Yeah, well, I just really didn't think it was a very big deal.
At that time, and the email is dated July 19th, and you were in Longmont at that time.
Yep,
Were you and the defendant romantically involved?
no,
But you still use the word romantic.
he used the word romantic.
No,
And
ma'am.
I responded with the same verbiage that he used.
You stated romantic for sure.
Okay, I used the word romantic, sure. In response to him using the word romantic.
Now, you made a distinction a moment ago. Did the defendant have GE business at Longmont to your knowledge?
I presume that he did. That's what I was told.
Okay? Did the defendant show up at Longmont when you were there?
Yes,
Did you pick the defendant up at the airport?
yes,
Did you take him back to Longmont with you?
yes,
Did you email the defendant back and forth and arrange even to sit next to him on the plane on the flight back?
I'm sure I did that, because we did that all the time. It was a focused 2-hour opportunity to talk about work for me that I don't really get the rest of the time and during the week.
So that would be normal course of business.
Yes,
May I push the witness record?
Right.
Approaching you with what has been marked as State's Exhibit 20, and for purposes of the record, it is date stamp page 6387. I may remind close to the witness, I'm going to direct your attention. What does State's Exhibit number 20 appear to be?
It's another thread of emails between Mr. Newman and Ms. Sneiderman.
I'm going to direct your attention. How many pages is State's Exhibit number 20? I'm going to direct your attention to the bottom of the first page. And what am I indicating? Do you see?
It is an email from Mr. Newman to Ms. Sneiderman.
And what date is that email from Mr. Newman to the defendant sent?
Monday, July the 19th at 12:40 a.m.
Okay, can you read the content of that email, please?
Can I call you at your, looks like 11, when I'm on my way? I don't know.
Call you at 11?
Yeah.
What does,
I'm going to object to that.
if anything,
That's not what it says. It says, can I call you at your 11? And Ms. Cross just said, can I call you at 11? The witness just said, yes. I mean, the document speaks for itself, and I do object to the state editing it enough to get the witness to agree that their editing is the correct reading.
All right, Ms. Petrie, I noted, I will direct that the jury read whatever is on the screen that may or may not be in that particular email and listen to what the witness is saying, and I will direct the lawyer to, quote, not speak to the witness at this stage, since she was on the record.
thank you, Your Honor. Can you read for me the exact wording of Mr. Newman's email to Ms. Sneiderman on the email we've been discussing of July 19th?
Yes, can I call you at your 11 when I'm on my way?
Thank you. And what, if anything, does the defendant respond?
The response is, yes, you can call at 11. I'll be on call. I did not get the note, as I said. Not sure what email is supposed to come in.
What, if anything, does Mr. Newman then respond to defendant Sneiderman?
His response is, it was supposed to be a paper they were supposed to leave in your room with chocolates and flowers.
What time is that email sent from Mr. Newman to Ms. Sneiderman referencing chocolate and flowers?
At 12:45 a.m. on July the 19th.
What, if anything, does the defendant respond?
The response is, are you kidding me? Nothing here, of course. Anyway, are you kidding me?
Is there any further email communication on State's Exhibit number 20?
Yes, Mr. Newman responds, no, very serious. That was the 20 phone calls I referred to. The receptionist called me, the last great romantic. I'll tell you what the note was supposed to say before we hang up later.
And what, if anything, does the defendant respond?
The the responses, but I thought it maybe did not work out. Romantic for sure, talk to you in a few.
Read me the defendant's exact words, please. I don't want to misquote it on the calendar. What does she respond, her last response?
But I thought it maybe did not work out. Romantic for sure, talk to you in a few.
What time was that email sent?
At 12:53 a.m.
On what day?
on Monday, July the 19th.
Is there any further email communication between the two, defendant Sneiderman and Hemi Newman, as reflected on State's Exhibit number 20?
No.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the State will move to introduce and publish for the jury an additional clip identified as 2-3.
2-3, you
Yes,
may.
sir.
But do you remember telling us the defendant was never at Longmont?
I don't remember saying that. I remember he did not go to Longmont with me, and he was not in that training with me. That's all true.
Okay.
Yeah.
But by your memory now, he was there?
Yes, he was there.
Okay. Now, did you indicate that he was there on business, or was he there just to see you?
He indicated to me he was there on business.
When you had business or the general practice of GE, if the defendant was there on business, would he be able to have transportation or a car?
I suppose.
Why would he need you to pick him up at the airport?
Don't know. Just asked me to do it, so that's what you do when your boss asks you to do it.
When you got back home, did you have to give him a ride?
Yep.
Why?
Didn't have a car. Just these things just didn't. I don't know what to tell you. I'm a nice person.
Ms. Scott, I'm handing you what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 21 for purposes of the record. It is based on page 6394. Your Honor, might I have
You may.
State's Exhibit number 21, what is that?
It is a email conversation between Mr. Newman and Ms. Sneiderman.
And can you read the first communication? Thank you. Can you read the first communication and let the jurors know what the date and time of that first email communication on State's Exhibit number 21 is?
It's Monday, July the 19th at 5:54, and there's simply a subject line of how are you getting back from the airport?
Who sent that email?
Mr. Newman,
Who received that email?
Ms. Sneiderman,
Did the defendant respond to that email?
she did. Evening on Friday night in ATL. I actually had not gotten that far. My family may already be at the lake, so I'd probably take a taxi home to Dunwoody, then leave the next morning to meet them out there. What are you doing? Obviously, I did not leave a car at the airport.
What, if anything, does Mr. Newman respond to the defendant's communication?
In response, send a note to Carmen and ask her to order car service for you. Then we'll figure out how I get home since I'm not on business travel.
What's the date of that last email?
July the 19th,
And what's the time it was sent?
6:14 p.m.
Can you read for me the exact wording of Mr. Newman's last line? I want to make sure I get it right.
Then we'll figure out how I get home since I am not on business travel.
Does the defendant respond?
She does.
How does the defendant respond?
I can help there, I'm sure.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd like to play an additional clip identified as clip 2-4.
2-4, you may.
Thank you.
And you, to the best of your knowledge now, you're saying he was there on business.
Yep.
Okay. One second, Judge.
Was this how many days was this training, ma'am?
A week.
1 week?
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Judge, this is Exhibit 1 of 7.
107?
Yes, sir. It's stipulation number 4891.
Here it goes, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes, Commissioner?
Yes, I can.
Go ahead. She said yes, she can.
Okay. Is that an email to you from the defendant?
Well, it's a couple emails back and forth. But
In
yeah.
that email, doesn't he say,
How are you getting back from the airport? I give this whole Friday night. I hadn't gotten that far. Family may already be at the lake, so I'll probably take a taxi home. But then Done what even leave the next morning, meet out there, what are you doing? Obviously I did not leave a car at the airport. And then we got a car service to my home and I drove him.
How about reading the rest of it?
Send a note to Carmen, ask for order car service for you, then we'll figure out how to get home since I'm not on business travel.
I'm not on business travel.
Yeah.
So he was not in Longmont on business travel.
And then I said I can help there, I'm sure.
So he was not on GE business for Longmont.
That's what that says.
So why was he at Longmont?
I don't know. Now I know.
Was he there to see you?
I guess so. To stalk me? Probably.
Did he stalk you from inside your own room?
Stalking can take on many different meanings.
So that's a yes.
He was there to spend time with me.
In your
Evidently.
room. In your room.
Yeah, he did not share a room with me. Was he in my room? Might have been for a little while, but didn't share a room with me.
And Your Honor, one final clip is identified as clip 2-5.
2-5, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The next trip you took, and we talked about this yesterday, is the trip to Longmont, Colorado.
Correct.
And when we say Denver, Longmont, that's essentially the same area, correct? That's one trip.
I wasn't in Denver, I was in Longmont.
I understand that. You have to fly into Denver to get to Longmont?
Yes.
Okay, so you were in Denver.
I flew into Denver.
Okay. So yesterday you were talking to Ms. Fury about not telling the police about Denver or anything. We're talking about that same trip. There's not two trips to Colorado.
Correct.
Ms. Sneiderman, you talked yesterday.
I'm sorry, can I be called Mrs. Sneiderman, or is that not against the court rules? Thank
You
you.
don't have to call it whatever she wants. That's fine. I was saying Ms.
She prefers Mrs. Snyder.
I will.
Courtesy email.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sneiderman. And I meant no disrespect by that.
That's right.
Of course, you knew, as you discussed yesterday, that Mr. Newman was coming out to meet you in Longmont, Colorado.
He was coming out to Longmont, Colorado.
Well, do you still, as you sit here today, is it still your testimony that you thought he was there on business?
I really didn't care or know why he was there specifically. I know now why he was there, but that's only because of what everyone has been talking about.
Well, you knew that he was coming out to Longmont, Colorado, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a break at this point in time before we go into cross-examination. Deputy Buckles will assist now. You're going to have to move that board so Judge Murphy, Deputy Buckles. And ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be about a 10-minute break. This is going to be our last break for the afternoon, okay?
All right.
May we see?
And good afternoon, everyone. 11 Alive's coverage of the Andrea Sneiderman trial continues. I'm Jeff Hullinger along with attorney Paige. Paige, it is interesting to take note of what feels like a trial within a trial, looking at these DVDs from the Hemi Newman murder trial. Earlier this year, now played before this jury and these attorneys and this judge in this courtroom, really gives it an unusual feel. It's almost surreal.
Right, it is a trial within a trial. I mean, we're trying the Hemi Newman case all over again, except Andrea Sneiderman this time is actually a defendant. You know, but I understand why they're doing this. I mean, they could try to introduce her prior statements just by the cold written transcript, but this is very effective. You actually get to hear what she said, and you get to see what she looked like back then. As we were discussing before, it's a totally different look for her and not nearly as appealing to the jury.
It is interesting to take note of what is seen and unseen, for that matter. This physical appearance is significantly different here in August than it was earlier in the year, and that sort of demeanor of hers in answering questions, which at times is robust and combative,
Yes.
to describe it politely.
Absolutely, and a bit snippy, the whole call me Mrs. Sneiderman. The state did not have to play that portion of the clip in a perjury trial, but they're doing that to remind the jury that the lady you see here today is not necessarily the one that was at that trial.
So if you are a member of the defense and you knew this was coming, you knew that they were going to play this, you're going to have to try and combat this, not only in terms with how it was presented, but again, back to that issue of Andrea Sneiderman as Andrea Sneiderman was earlier this year.
Right. I think the first thing I would have done, and maybe they did this in the case, is to try to get the judge to make a pretrial ruling on just exactly what parts of that prior trial come into evidence. I know they can bring in the evidence of the prior statements, but all of the other back and forth, her demeanor, answers to questions that aren't necessarily relevant, I would have tried to have kept that out.
The bartender from Greenville, South Carolina, at the nightclub called Pulse, where Hemi Newman and Andrea Sneiderman were dancing, were drinking after a dinner in Greenville on a business trip. She is a likable witness, and we have seen her sort of, very comfortable, sort of laugh at times, kind of play to the jury a little bit. Does that become counterproductive for the defense as they go after her, trying to poke some holes in her testimony?
Right. I just don't think the cross-examination was particularly effective from the jury standpoint. I think they like her. I think they believe her. Mr. Clegg did have a good point on a prior statement that was not entirely consistent with what she's saying now. I think that was a good point, but to continue to badger her, I don't know that he made much ground with that.
And the issue, one of the sound bites that will be played on the evening news tonight, no doubt, will be about salsa dancing with District Attorney James using the podium as his dance partner.
Yeah, an interesting visual certainly for the jury. I don't know how effective it was in advancing their case, but I guess we'll see.
They also have gone repeatedly back to the General Electric employee, the woman who is based in Cincinnati, Ohio, who is not from here. She has been the one that has harvested emails, laptops, various communications devices where there might have been an interaction between Newman and Sneiderman. Explain to me why they keep going back to her. She has played a very significant role in the afternoon's testimony.
Well, they have to get the emails into evidence, and to do that, they have to lay a proper foundation. Now, a lot of that evidence could have been stipulated to, but I think in the presence...
Well, by stipulated to, what do you mean by that?
The defense says, look, we don't have a good objection to it.
Okay.
We know it's authentic. We know that these emails were actually the emails. So you stipulate to that, and you get that out from the jury's standpoint, and then you're just focusing on the content of the emails. But the state has a reason for this. I mean, they've scripted out the way they want the evidence to come in, with the clips being played and then back to the document. So I think they're trying to present their story in the way they want to.
Is there any kind of advantage on day one? Everyone will try to break it down by who's doing well at what point in the trial. It only makes sense that the prosecution, which is on the attack today, and with these witnesses, would seem to be a little bit in control, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, it is their case, and they get to present witnesses. They choose which witnesses go first, which witnesses go last, and they get to decide the question. So you would anticipate that they would be well ahead at this point.
All right, so we have probably another hour. Maybe we don't even have that long in today's first day. Give me your overview so far of what you've liked, what you haven't liked, what has gotten your attention.
Well, I think the opening statements were about as we expected them to be. The state's going to make a lot of great claims about the evidence they intend to introduce, and they're expecting the jury to believe off the bat that she's a liar, that they had this relationship and she was trying to cover it up. I think the defense has tried to poke holes in these witnesses, but this is very different than the Zimmerman trial. They haven't turned any witnesses into defense witnesses here. I think they're just trying to tread water at this point.
Let me ask you this question. This testimony is so detailed and laborious at times that it really takes someone in the legal profession to be able to follow the narrative of it. When you're playing to jurors who are not legal minds, who have not been, in the middle of these kinds of proceedings at any point in their lives, doesn't that confuse the jury? I mean, doesn't there become such a mass of information that jurors may make up their mind very early in this case if they can't understand all that's being said or all that's being presented?
Yes, it's a risk, and it's always a challenge for a lawyer. You don't want the jury to get lost in minutia. You want them to be focused on the things that are most important to your case. I don't think the jury's going to have any doubts, though, that Sneiderman and Newman were having some sort of a fleeing in Greenville, South Carolina. So I think they got that point. The question is, does the state go too far with all the documents and the clips? And by playing a lot of the clip instead of focusing on the meat of it, is the jury losing focus? That's possible.
Do you try and make the focus early in a case like this, or do you wait, sort of like a Broadway play, and wait for that final act as you get toward week 3?
And I think it's too late at that point. Most good prosecutors and defense lawyers will tell you, hit them strong, from the very beginning. Get the jurors already thinking about your case and liking you. Now, you want to save some good witnesses for the end,
Right.
recency and primacy. I mean, you always want to start strong and end strong. Maybe that's what they'll do.
So if you want to start strong, why would you begin with this woman from General Electric, who the detail and the sort of slog through her information of harvesting emails is the stuff of snoozing?
Well, I think that witness really set up the bartender from Greenville, because we, number one, had to know that she was working, Sneiderman was working at GE with Hemi Newman, so we needed to establish that as a basic fact before we could get into the juicier testimony from the other witnesses.
Couldn't you do that with information from her without having her on the witness stand?
You could do that through documents, certainly, but go ahead and call a live witness. It's also easy to start with a witness that's going to be fairly innocuous. We don't worry about this witness exploding on the stand. Or, let's start slow and then kind of come up with 2 or 3 good witnesses at the end of the day.
So will we see more of this DVD for the remainder of the afternoon from the Hemi Newman trial?
I think they're going to try, that they being the state, to play it as often as they can, because again, it's not just what's being said in the video, it's how she looks in the video. So
they're looking for specific highlights, at least from their standpoint, that sort of gives you a peer into her soul and her psyche.
Yeah, this is who she is. It's not just what she's saying, but it's how she's saying it, and bringing them all back to the fact that this involved a murder trial. Even though this was not one, that one was.
What else has surprised you today? Anything else kind of stick out as you've spent many hours here parked in front of this television set in front of us, along with the audio, kind of making some notes and thinking, and I see your eyes sort of spinning when you hear some of these words. Is there anything else that's kind of jumped out at you this afternoon?
I think it's somewhat surprising that we didn't see the state lay out in a very consistent and very credible way, here is statement number 1 that she said, and here is the reason why it's false, and go through that for each and every individual